Picture this. A man stands alone on a bustling street in Kyiv, Ukraine. He's not dressed like the others. His attire harks back to the era of the Soviet Union. This man, an enigma in the heart of a modern city, drew the attention of passers-by. He didn't belong. His actions were peculiar, out of sync with the rhythm of Kyiv. He held an old camera, its design a relic of a bygone era. He looked lost, his eyes scanning his unfamiliar surroundings with a mixture of confusion and apprehension. His attire was a stark reminder of the past. He wore a Soviet military uniform, an odd choice in a country that had long since shrugged off the shackles of its Soviet legacy. The uniform was not just out of place, it was a symbol, a ghost of a country that no longer existed. It was as if he had stepped out of a time capsule, a living snapshot of a forgotten era. The whispers began to circulate amongst the crowd. Who was this man? Why was he here in this uniform? His presence was a puzzle, a mystery that captivated the curiosity of those around him. Their stares were met with uneasy glances, his discomfort palpable amidst the sea of questioning eyes. His behavior and attire were not just strange, they were an anomaly. It was like seeing a knight in shining armor in the middle of Times Square, or a Viking wandering the streets of London. His every move, every gesture, was a spectacle that drew more and more attention. The crowd's reactions varied from curiosity to wariness, from intrigue to unease. Some viewed him with suspicion, others with fascination, but the common thread that ran through all their reactions was a burning desire to know, who was this man? As the crowd's curiosity grew, the police stepped in, hoping to uncover the identity of this enigmatic figure. They asked him for an identification, a clue to his identity. What they got in return was an ID from a country that had ceased to exist over 2 decades ago: the Soviet Union. As the crowd's curiosity grew, the police stepped in, hoping to uncover the identity of this enigmatic figure. Just who was this man? The police hoped his ID would hold the answers they sought. As they unfolded the worn-out piece of identification, their brows furrowed in confusion. Sergei Ponomarenko, it read, but the issuing country was what truly threw them off. The ID claimed it was from a nation that had ceased to exist nearly 15 years prior, the Soviet Union. This was not some novelty item or a collector's piece, it was an authentic Soviet identification card, worn by time yet still holding a certain undeniable air of legitimacy. The officers exchanged glances, their faces mirrors of disbelief. They were holding a relic, a piece of history that should be tucked away in some museum, not in the hands of a man standing right in front of them, in the heart of Kyiv, wearing a Soviet military uniform. The intrigue surrounding the man grew exponentially. It was as if he had stepped right out of a history book, his appearance and belongings a stark contrast to the modern world around him. Each detail of his ID was scrutinized, every line of text analyzed, yet it all pointed to the same inconceivable conclusion. The man's photograph matched the face of the person standing before them, the same weary eyes and weather-beaten features. His details checked out too. The ID was indeed issued in the Soviet Union, bearing all the official stamps and markings of the era. But the most baffling detail was yet to be revealed, but the strangest part was yet to come. His ID claimed he was Sergei Ponomarenko, and his birth date was listed as 1932. This would make the man in front of them 92 years old. Yet, he didn't look a day over 30. It was a mystery wrapped in an enigma, a riddle that defied all logic and understanding. The identity of this man, Sergei Ponomarenko, was shaping up to be a tale stranger than fiction. Sergei Ponomarenko, a name that would soon be whispered across Ukraine and the world. Our tale begins in the year 1960. Sergei Ponomarenko, a 25-year-old man living in the Soviet Union. A simple man, Sergei had an affinity for photography. On one particular day, he took his camera and decided to venture out into nature to capture the beauty of the world around him. As he was wandering through the park, he stumbled upon a peculiar-looking rock. Drawn to its unusual appearance, he decided to photograph it. Little did he know this act would catapult him into a vortex of time, transporting him to the year 2006. In the blink of an eye, Sergei found himself standing on a street in Kyiv, a city that was eerily unfamiliar and yet somewhat recognizable. The architecture was different, the people dressed in strange clothes, and the noise of the city was overwhelming. He was a man out of time, lost in a world that was decades ahead of his own. People around him started to take notice of his odd behavior and his antiquated Soviet military uniform. The police were called in to investigate, and after showing them his identification, the officers were left baffled. His ID was from the Soviet Union, a country that had ceased to exist over a decade ago. As the news of the man claiming to be a time traveler started to circulate, curiosity turned into a full-blown investigation. Researchers began to delve into Sergei's past, unearthing a wealth of peculiar findings. They discovered an old military record of a man named Sergei Ponomarenko, who had mysteriously disappeared in the year 1960. Moreover, they found an old photograph taken by Sergei himself of the peculiar rock that he claimed had transported him through time. The picture was analyzed, and the results were truly mind-boggling. The photograph was indeed from the 1960s, taken with an analog camera. But what was truly astonishing was the rock itself. It was found to have a bizarre energy signature, one that scientists couldn't explain with current understanding of physics. More and more, the evidence seemed to support Sergei's claim. Historical records matched his personal accounts, his ID was authentic, and the photograph was a relic of the past. The mystery of Sergei Ponomarenko took the world by storm, with people from all walks of life debating the authenticity of his story. Yet, despite the mounting evidence, there were still many who remained skeptical. They argued that it was all an elaborate hoax, a publicity stunt designed to capture the world's attention. But as the investigations continued, the skeptics found themselves outnumbered by the believers. The more people dug into Sergei's past, the more they found themselves asking, could this man really be a time traveler? The idea was ludicrous, impossible even, but the evidence kept pointing back to one impossible conclusion. If Sergei's existence and his claims were to be believed, then we're faced with a reality where time travel is not just a concept found in science fiction novels, but a tangible, achievable phenomenon. This notion alone is enough to send ripples through the scientific community and beyond. Sergei's story sparked a multitude of debates and theories. Some propose the existence of parallel universes where the Soviet Union never collapsed. Others suggest he might be a living anachronism, a man caught in a time loop, forever bound to relive the same period of history. Scientifically speaking, his existence could challenge the very laws of physics as we understand them. If time travel were possible, it would mean that space-time is not linear, as we currently believe, but rather more fluid and malleable. This could open up a whole new field of quantum physics, where time and space are no longer constants, but variables that can be manipulated. Ethically, Sergei's existence raises other questions. If we could travel back in time, would it be right to change the course of history? Who would decide what changes are beneficial and what are harmful? These questions touch on the very essence of free will and moral responsibility. Societally, the implications are just as profound. How would society react to the existence of time travelers? Would they be treated as celebrities, or would they be feared and ostracized? Would their knowledge of future events be exploited, or would they be silenced to preserve the status quo? Whether you believe in time travel or not, the story of Sergei Ponomarenko is one that continues to puzzle and intrigue, a man out of time in a world that can't quite believe. His story, whether a remarkable truth or an elaborate hoax, forces us to ask questions about our reality that we may never have contemplated before. It challenges our understanding of the universe and our place within it. Today, the mystery of Sergei Ponomarenko endures. His tale, woven from the threads of time, is one that continues to perplex and captivate. A man seemingly out of place, out of time, standing alone on a bustling street in Kyiv, garbed in an ancient Soviet military uniform. His identification from a country long dissolved, the Soviet Union, only deepens the intrigue. Sergei's enigmatic story has left a trail of lingering questions. Was he a time traveler? A man lost between the folds of time? Or perhaps a skillful actor playing out an elaborate ruse? The answers remain elusive, cloaked in the mists of uncertainty. Despite the unanswered questions, Sergei Ponomarenko's tale continues to fascinate. It has become a captivating puzzle that time travel enthusiasts and mystery lovers alike yearn to solve. In the end, all we're left with is the enigma of a man in an old Soviet military uniform, standing alone on a street in Kyiv. A man named Sergei Ponomarenko,